Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Learning Update. I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and acknowledge Elders past, present and emerging. This week, keeping in with our recovery theme, we're chatting to Carol Hopkins, who's a recovery officer down in Mallacoota. Welcome, Carol.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome. Carol, can you just tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to work as a bushfire recovery officer for Red Cross?
Sure. I was a teacher for 35 years, but I wasn't teaching at the time that the fire came. And obviously, Red Cross were here on the ground from the very first moment in the recovery centre and dealing with all the enormous tasks that were happening in Mallacoota at the time. And so in the probably 12 months following that, there were all sorts of things going on, and I became, one way or another, a member of MADRA, which is our local community-led recovery organisation. And then I did some work with Shona, a person from Red Cross, and the ABC and the Renegade Films team, talking about community-led recovery for the benefit of other recovering communities. That work took us to a conference in Adelaide, and while I was in Adelaide, I met the recovery team together as a team, and I thought, wow, what a great team. Later on, I learned that there was a vacancy in the team, and so I applied, and here I am.
Wow, that's quite a journey, but look, must be a really valuable one to have the insights that you must have from all of those things. Is there anything new that you've discovered or learned about disaster recovery through this process?
Oh, lots and lots of things. It's a big learning journey all the way, and the same as the recovery journey is a learning journey all the way. It's something that I've become really fascinated with, and I guess I feel compelled in the space because it's very real to my town. Yeah,
Absolutely. And how is the town traveling now? It's what is it 2 or going on
it's
3
3
years?
years now.
Yeah.
We're 3 years past the fire. In fact, 3 and a bit. Uh, for some people, they're going really well. They've rebuilt houses and got back on their feet, and that doesn't mean we're not still kind of a bit traumatized and triggered. But for others, it's been a really hard journey. Some people are still in dongas and sheds and caravans and unsuitable accommodation. And for those people, the job of rebuilding is just getting harder, and it feels like that dream of getting back into a home is getting further and further away, not closer. And so that's a really tough part of the journey. And I guess that's one of the things I care a lot about helping with.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm curious to understand, what impacts that has on community. It's 3 years is such a long time, and we've all travelled through COVID in that period.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine how difficult that would have made things in that recovery process, just trying to get things built and
Yeah.
all sorts of things,
So we
particularly in a
lost
town like Mallacoota.
We're a community of only 1,000 permanent residents, though there were about 8 to 10,000 people in town at the time of the fire. We lost 123 homes, and we've only managed to rebuild 20 of those.
Wow.
And I think that for people who haven't got back into their home, I don't think that their recovery journey can even really begin um, until they get back in an environment where they feel at home and connected and happy. And so for those people, that's super tough. Yeah.
That's staring. Just that figure again. 20 homes have
So
been
we
built.
lost 123 homes. Seven. Now you might think in a tourist town, some of those were holiday homes, but in fact, that was 78 permanent families who live here. And so 78 families displaced and they lost everything, obviously. So yeah, that was a really big impact and on their lives. Some have been forced to move away because of the difficulties of trying to get back into a house. Obviously, there's nothing to rent here. Everything is really tight. The market has doubled in price, and we had the awfully difficult situation during the 2 years of COVID, there were rentals available for people who lost houses because holiday accommodation was empty. But at about the 2-year mark, their rent insurance with insurance companies ran out.
Oh, dear.
Holidaymakers returned, lockdowns ended, and that created a real perfect storm for accommodation. And people whose homes had burned down 2 years earlier got eviction notices from their rentals. There was nowhere else for them to go. Some of them had to totally leave their community and move as far as Melbourne because there is no
Wow.
next door to Mallacoota. There's nowhere else to go without going a long way to get a home. And so that was a really hurtful part of the journey.
Well, it sounds like the community's done it really tough. We
Yeah.
expected that, but to hear the first-hand accounts and to hear some of those figures, it's really quite remarkable for a community like that. What work is Red Cross doing in that community to assist here?
Well, initially, Red Cross were obviously heavily involved in the evacuation. The evacuations of thousands of tourists and their cats and dogs and fish and all sorts of things. Um, People between 5 and about, I don't know, 60 maybe, were evacuated on the choules. If you were younger than 5 or frail in any way, you were evacuated by Black Hawk helicopter. That was not a fun experience. That was terrifying for those people.
Mm.
And everybody left, and they just left everything they had behind. So they left cars and caravans and all of their things, and they just and really those things remained untouched for a long time because people just fled.
Yeah.
And so the Red Cross had a huge task trying to find accommodation for those people while they waited for the ship, and especially accommodations for families with little kids. Um, and then they had to organise um, registration of all those people, contact with their families, getting them a place on a ship, or getting them a place on a helicopter, as well as all of the other tasks that come along with a community in Armageddon, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the Red Cross were a huge force in that early recovery time, and we've had recovery officers here ever since. Um, just helping all of the volunteer organisations and individuals to get on with all of the huge tasks that we face as a recovering community. We're still here, but maybe not for much longer, which worries me because we haven't really been ready to talk about preparedness, and it's been raining for ever since the fire, pretty much. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we haven't felt the need. I guess we felt like we could sort of maybe forget about that a bit. And so now, before we have a scary hot summer, honestly we need to do some preparedness work, and we're only barely ready to talk about that.
Well, what a trajectory the town has had.
Yeah.
I can't comprehend it, but that's a really good segue because I'm really keen to understand how our volunteers can assist the Mallacoota community. What sort of help do they need, and what can our volunteers do?
Yeah. So right now, I have a few people who are interested in becoming volunteers, and the work that I would like to see them doing. Some of it would be psychological first aid work, being available when we have events here, we always have psychological first aiders and well-being spaces created because people do get triggered
Mhm.
pretty often. They get upset pretty often. They need support pretty often. And so that's one of the tasks. And I think the other task that I'd love to see some volunteers getting involved in East Gippsland is helping people to plan for the future, um, helping people to think about what their supports are, what preparedness they need to do, whether it's a ready plan document or if they have um, more needs than a more complicated document. Do you have a wheelchair? Do you have a companion animal? Do you need special supports in the face of another emergency?
Yeah.
And that kind of work, I think, although we're pretty reluctant to do it because I think, there's a lot of fear, and we still have fear around it, and we also have exhaustion around it.
Mm.
So we have been a bit reluctant to get started, but I think that one thing that I would say to people is, it's once it's done, it feels good. Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm really keen to get that work happening all over East Gippsland. And honestly, I don't know how I'm going to get to it all, because at this point we only have until June in East Gippsland
Yeah. So
as paid
yeah.
staff.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. And then, so the paid staff are winding up there in June. So it's really important that we try and find ways that we can continue to work and supporting their
Yeah.
community. So that's the call out to the VKS volunteers is to get involved and see what you can do to assist the community down at Mallacoota. Thanks, Carol. That's been a really great insight, and really appreciate your lived experience too, explaining all of that to us down at Mallacoota.
Thank you. And Anthony, could I just say that the community is heartbreakingly grateful for all the volunteers who've helped us out over the last 3 years. It's been a monumental task, and we really appreciate it.
Our volunteers are amazing, aren't they? They're very
Yep.
special. And yeah, I see it. I see the work and it blows me away what our volunteers do. It's just a
Yeah.
remarkable thing. But thanks so much, Carol. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Anthony. Bye
Bye.
for now.